I'm Nicolas Babin. I'm the president at Babin Business Consulting. I have several hats. One of them is I'm a consultant working on digital transformation for many large companies, scale-ups and startups. I also work as an influencer for other type of companies as well, scale-ups, startups, and large ones. And I'm also author of a book called The Talking Dog, which I wrote last summer, a couple of months ago. I also am a top expert, as they say, for the World Economic Forum, and I work as a senator for the World Business Angel Forum. So when did I decide to work in the field I am in, which is pretty much new technologies and transformation? I was very lucky. Back in 1989, I moved from France, where I'm originally from, to San Francisco. In San Francisco, I started to work on the internet. Back in '89, internet existed a long time ago, obviously, but it became really for consumers at that time. And I was working for a French bank, BNP, in San Francisco, and I implemented the first email system. So I was really, I was 23 years old. I was really, look at this internet and email thinking, wow, fascinating technologies. And then after that, I had a mentor called Mr. Kawada, a Japanese guy who worked with me at Sony, and made me really even more into new technologies, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So what advice would you give to new learners or those who are just beginning to get in the tech field? Is I would say follow as many people who know about the fields they're in, read as much as possible, and put your hands and roll up your sleeves, put your hands down and get on with things, get on with technology, get on understanding what it means. Don't be like a lot of people that you see today on the market, where it's like politicians. They think they know about a lot of things, but actually when you ask them real questions about the technology or about how it works, then they don't know anything. So really one of the advice is, if you want to become a thought leader, if you want to become somebody who has a voice in anything, it means you need to understand exactly how it works. The challenges that I have successfully worked through or overcame in my field, the first ones were really about culture. Because as a Frenchman, I moved to San Francisco, as I mentioned. It was a very different culture. American culture versus European or even French culture was very, very different. In France, again, or in Europe, it's the old world, as it's been called before. And it's true that it's hard to start thinking ahead and about trends. Things have changed a lot today, but I'm an older guy, and so you ask me what the challenges I had to overcome, and this to me was the biggest one. Today, I think younger generation would have to face other challenges, which will be probably around sustainability and climate actions and all this. Back then in 89, 90, when I started, it was really more about culture and ensuring that I would fit within these cultures. Technical challenges that people face who have no technical background and how they should overcome that. Well, there's the best thing is education. I've been a professor at some universities here in France, also in the UK. And the only way I would say, either you do it through university, through school or everything, or you do it yourself, reading as many books as you can, understanding and really getting your technical background. As I mentioned in the last question, it's important for people to understand how it works. Don't go wide in terms of the knowledge that you want to have. One very important point is really focus on one subject at a time. If you're interested in virtual reality, go and study about virtual reality as an example. Don't start working on blockchain. Don't start working on other technologies. Just focus on one thing and you will learn gradually, because you have a lot of people who can explain to you in simple words how this works. The most rewarding aspect of my career is the fact that I had to work with people from all around the world. As I mentioned, my mentor is a gentleman called Kawada. So in Japanese, it will be Kawada-san. He's the guy who invented GPS. Started to work with him at Sony back in 1996. He trusted me. I was just 30 years old, and he gave me the responsibility for Europe, Middle East, and Africa for all GPS systems, so the digital mapping company for Sony. And after that, because I was extremely successful, he helped me to become the head of artificial intelligence and robot, the launch of Aibo, which is the entertainment robot from Sony back in 1999. And it's true that I've been extremely lucky, as I mentioned from the very beginning of this video, because I was always at the right time, at the right place, and meeting the right people. But we'll talk about why it was important and how I managed these relationships in the next questions. So what programs or technical tools do you most often use as part of my position? I work a lot with obviously all the Git. It really depends. As I mentioned, I have several hats. So if I'm more on the consulting job, I work with consulting tools that help me communicate better between customers, as I mentioned, with GitHub, for example. If I work as an influencer, I work a lot on Twitter, on LinkedIn, which are really the two social media platforms that I use the most. So it really depends, but I don't have any limits. Basically, I want to make sure that as soon as I hear about a new platform, a new system, I want to try it. I want to make sure that I understand how it works and that I master it as fast as I can. So at least I can talk about it. Right now, my passion is about metaverse, what Mark Zuckerberg talked about, rebranding his company from Facebook to Meta. And metaverse is it's really interesting because, as I mentioned, I wrote a book about new technologies, and it's the combination of all the new technologies that I talk about in my book, putting into one meta universe, because meta in Greek means beyond. So it's beyond the universe, and universe being that you can be physically into a universe, but you can also have avatars into that universe. It's something that's fascinating. Always ensuring that even though I'm older than average age people in new tech, that I'm always on top of new technologies and I always understand the trends. What are some basic technical skills should new learners focus on mastering for a tech job? As I mentioned before, it really depends on the focus and the passion. To me, you want to be successful, you need to be passionate. If you want to wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I'm going to have a horrible day, then it's better to stay in bed, frankly. So if you're passionate about something, this is how you're going to build your community, meaning people around you. For example, on Twitter, I have over 100,000 people following me directly, which means roughly every month I reach between 3 and 5 million people. But it's because I'm passionate about my subjects, and I've learned gradually about all the subjects. One of my first subject was about GPS. Back in 96, it was wow, nobody knew about GPS because it was just the beginning of it. Then robot became my passion. So I learned about robot, I learned about artificial intelligence, and every time it gradually I learned about these things. So it really depends on what people want to do. And so they need to ensure that at least they master their subject, or once they know exactly what they want to do, that they read and they educate themselves around all the technical skills that they should have for the subject they've chosen. How did your education prepare you for your position? Again, I'm a much older guy. I'm sorry, I keep repeating that, and I feel very old saying that now. But my education at the time, you have to remember, I had my master's degree back in 1989, right? Internet just started. So when we needed to look for something, we had to open a book, right? We had nothing online. You have to remember that internet, everybody was on it from 95, 96, even year 2000. So my education prepared me to understand different cultures. So I'm going to be outside of the box here. I'm probably, a lot of people have told you, yeah, I went to a great university, which I did, which was Bordeaux University for France. It's a fantastic one. And I went to a very good business school as well. But because where I am today in terms of new technologies and everything, there was no way, and nobody could have ever predicted back in 89 or 90 where we would be today. So my school prepared me to have an open mindset. And I think this is the key to success today, is really have an open mindset. Even if you don't have the technical background, even if you don't have the cultural understanding of where you're going, if you have an open mindset, this will have prepared you to be successful for any type of job. Because if you're ready to educate yourself, if you're ready to open a book about something you have no idea what it's going to talk about, if you're ready to talk to a different culture that can be very different from yours. For example, I've worked a lot in Japan, in China, and the first times, I have to say, it was hard. But it was not for the Chinese to adapt to Nicolas Babin. It was for Nicolas Babin to adapt to the Chinese or the Japanese, because obviously their culture is much older than mine, than me and my culture as well. So that's why it's really important. I think that's one of the hardest questions that I had today, was really how my education prepared me for my position. It really mostly 100% with the open mindset and not being stubborn about a subject, trying to understand the other person with the other person's perspective. That was really the most important. Three traits that work for me to be successful, I would say: resilience, be kind, and focus. So these were my three traits. Resilience, because you fall down 7 times, you get up 8. That's what I learned in Japan. It's a Japanese sentence that really is all about me. Failure is part of the journey, and that's really important that people understand that. You need to fail if you want to be successful. And I failed many times. I've created 26 companies in my career as an entrepreneur, succeeded 5 times out of 26. So, and the French culture, it's kind of shameful. Whereas outside of France, US, or even Asia, people would think, well, at least he's not ashamed about it. He's talking about it, and I've learned a lot about all this. So that's the resilience part. Is sometimes you're deep down and you think, what could have I done differently? But then you think, wow, there's actually another world that I could go after. I've learned so much in my failure, and I'm going to try something else. So that's the first one. Be kind. Life's too short. It's easy to be kind. There's no point in being mean and refusing. And I'm contacted by a lot of students. I'm contacted by a lot of companies that ask for my experience. As I said, I've been really lucky. So if I can give back what I've got from the past, I'm all for it. And I think you can go on my LinkedIn page and have over hundreds of recommendations. And that's one thing that comes back is really that I want to help. And that's really important. And the last thing, which is really important, is focus. Focus on what you know, focus on what you like. Because if you start talking about something you don't know, if you start talking about something you don't like, you're not going to be credible. And these were my 3 traits that I wanted to mention today. The technology categories that I see in terms of job growth trends, I've mentioned metaverse, and I think somebody who has the possibility of understanding all these new technologies that can create a new type of business. Every day, I read, you wouldn't believe how many articles I read or how many books I read. And the more I see now is about, Zuckerberg announced this metaverse, and now all the big companies are saying, hey, we want to be part of this. So Nike has announced it. Carrefour in France has announced. Many companies now are saying, oh, we want to sell. I saw today that a big yachting company said, I want to sell a big yacht on the metaverse. closing companies say, we want to start selling on metaverse. Why? Because then, rather than going out in the COVID time, especially going out to a shop and taking some risks, what can you do? You can try your clothes online. You can check the price. You can talk to somebody who's at the beginning, at least a chatbot, and then somebody real if you have more questions. The job growth is really where we are today in terms of a new tech. There are many things, fintech, anything financial technology. Obviously, there's huge job growth and job demands. Martech, health tech, all these industries require people who have the knowledge and who have an open mindset. I'm going to go back to my earlier point. So my last advice to technologists to transition from technical person to a leadership. Where do you see the leadership skills? That's something that you learn, and that's something that you want to do. Not everyone wants to be a leader. To be honest with you, at the beginning of my career, I was really happy as a coding on AS400 for IBM. I was really excited to see how salespeople would use my tools, how customers would use my software, I created. And then moving on, I realized that actually what was important to me was the social angle, and the fact that I would be closer to people, share more ideas, and I became a leader because of 35 years of experience. But a leader, there's a huge difference between being a leader and being a manager. To me, a leader is a door opener. It's somebody who's there who's part of the team, 100%. And who's together helping the team succeed. So what I mean by a door opener is like, because you're a leader, you have access to maybe other people than other persons in your team probably will have. So you help create the link with other people. You help open doors in terms of business, in terms of also almost like mentoring. A leader is not only a mentor, but it's also part of the job. And that's why it takes, a different type of will and a different type of passion to be a leader. Once you're a leader, you're not creating any more like codes or anything. You might create ideas. You might ensure that you need to ensure that your team will be successful in what they want to put in place. But it's a totally different job being a leader than being a tech person. As a leader, I've kept my tech mind, but it's maybe one of the things that I would regret the most today is the fact that as a leader, I don't build anything anymore.